Don't speak what you don't understand. The truth is not in your command. Don't shout about what you think is fake. The decision isn't yours to make. Don't lie about the way things are. Tall tales will take you where you are.
Hey everyone, it's Marianne from the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees. I want to do this quick video, and it might not be quick, on a recap of the Municipal Labor Committee, and especially on the eve of them trying to negotiate this or vote on this healthcare plan on September 30th. That's supposed to take place at the Municipal Labor Committee meeting on the 30th at DC 37 headquarters. So I want to give a little recap of what the MLC is, what their power is and isn't. And if you as a union feel that you don't have enough information to cast your vote at this meeting, don't. And I'm going to explain to you why, because this gets lost in translation way too often, that people think that the Municipal Labor Committee has the exclusive right to bargain for healthcare, because of course that's what you keep being told by the two largest unions in the city, in which benefit from you doing this. So I want to show you the construct and the history, and then move into a little bit of the health plan. And if you have some questions, I can always take those. But I want to try to keep this part of it kind of brief. So I want to show you, I had done this, about a year ago. The two largest unions in the Municipal Labor Committee are the UFT and DC 37. The UFT cast the largest single vote, but DC 37 has like 62 locals under it, and most of them are in the MLC. Some of them aren't. And then you see all these other unions coming into the screen. Some of them are bigger than others, right? So some of the largest unions have a larger vote. The United Federation of Teachers has the largest single vote. They hold about 1/3. Well, about 1/3. Between DC 37 has 1/3 if all 62 locals vote in the same way, in the United Federation of Teachers. But remember, under DC 37, they don't get one vote, one large, huge vote. They get a lot of little votes. But how does that happen? We've known from past voting that Henry Garrido, from the District Council Executive Director, has gone to his locals and said, hey, listen, give me your proxy. Let me vote for you. I'm going to this meeting today. And sometimes he doesn't tell them what the vote's about. Sometimes he doesn't tell them what he's voting for. Maybe the president might say how they want to vote, but I can't make the meeting. Henry Garrido takes the proxy and he votes the way he wants. The proxy always goes to the House. And we learned this when several new presidents were freaked out 4 years ago when they learned that their proxy was given to Henry to do the right thing, or to do whatever the member thought that the president would be, executive director would be doing in the best interest. But he didn't realize, or they didn't realize, what Henry was doing. And that's how we learned how the abuse of these proxies has been handled. Union presidents in the district council give their proxy to Henry Garrido. Henry votes the way the House wanted to vote, because he had this inside deal under that 2018 agreement that would vote the way that I guess he wanted to vote for with the United Federation of Teachers. So a 2/3 vote is required to pass any motion in the MLC. With just DC 37 and the United Federation of Teachers, they could do that. Now, let's move on. And so you understand the construct, because every union has one vote for every 250 members. And that's how they get to that. That has never changed since 1966. And it wasn't until the late 80s did the UFT get into the MLC. And that was because Al Shanker, then leader of UFT, didn't get along with Victor Gottbaum, then leader of DC 37. And they just couldn't stand each other. So if DC 37 wanted to pass that 2/3 motion, he had to get a lot of other unions to agree with him. Now, instead of that, you have this very undemocratic way where they say that this is the way to do healthcare bargaining, and just basically these two unions rule the roost. Doesn't have to work that way. The MLC was not created to be a bargaining unit, and much to many people's surprise, it does not hold a bargaining certificate. Literally, the MLC is really basically a coalition. It's an administrative body that was created in 1966. It was also the same time collective bargaining was born, and their job was to facilitate and coordinate activities and be informational. It was not supposed to bargain. This has not changed. The MLC has no negotiating power, although they claim that they do. That's because they have usurped it from the members. And OCB appears to be letting them get away with it, but I'm going to talk more about that later, because the MLC has also recognized that this is an unanswered question that they've just not answered. And why do they get away with it, or let them get away with it? Really, because they're kind of doing the bidding of the city. The Office of Collective Bargaining and the Office of Labor Relations, they're lazy. OLR doesn't want to have to negotiate with like 200 unions. So when they say healthcare negotiations are done with the MLC, there's this one body. And then they keep creating these other little committees, like little committees of like 5 or 7 or 10 people or 3 people. And then you can never find out who's on them, because this whole committee is born in secrecy. We've filed FOIA, we've filed requests, we've emailed Ellen Medwood, who's a DC 37 employee who is the administrative secretary of the MLC. We've emailed Harry Naspoli, we've contacted Alan Klinger over the last 4 years. They never reply, they don't answer emails, they don't even have a website. You can never tell who's on any of these committees or steering committees, and this whole program is born in secrecy. This is not democracy, it's not transparency, and it is not supposed to be the way collective bargaining is. This is not why labor relations had put together this whole program of municipal labor committee. Unlike unions, the MLC does not represent its member, which represent their member unions. The MLC does not collectively bargain with the city concerning wages, hours, and work conditions. The unions do. And we have 2 legal documents, affidavits from James Hanley, the former Assistant Director of Labor Relations, and Arvid Anderson, the Director of the Office of Collective Bargaining, that specifically state that fact. And yet it's been abused time and time again. This was the birth, in 1966, the birth of collective bargaining. The MLC's purpose was largely, like I said, for administrative purposes and to share information. The only citywide bargaining was for DC 37 locals, and that's because it was the largest umbrella union of all these like little locals underneath it. The MLC, again, does not have a bargaining certificate. They've assumed this power, and it is not legal. However, they operate like a coalition, and every time you vote, you give them that power. In 2014, you've seen this is the United Federation of Teachers contract. That 2014 MLC agreement was the very first time a union negotiated a contract partially funded on the backs of other unions and retirees. To me, this was criminal. This is an improper practice, and it violated the faith of all these other unions. Brotherhood, solidarity, gone. That's what this did. It killed this. This was dangerous, and only a few unions recognized this at the time, but due to this weighted voting structure, of course, it passed. The unions were told they had to vote, they had to do this, but in fact, they did not. And then in 2018, it became DC 37's chance to do the same thing. The 2018 MLC agreement now was born. This was the second time a practice of negotiating a contract that was made contingent on an MLC agreement, and this one had far-reaching effects that they're still realizing today, because they said that they would create all these savings, $200 million in 19, $300 million in 20, and $600 million in 2021, and recurring thereafter, without ever saying how they would do it. Remember that line, because the active worker non-Medicare retiree plan that right now that they are trying to pass in the MLC next week, this plan has the same kind of built-in savings. The unions in the MLC promised the city $1 billion in savings, and nowhere in there does it lay out how they'll do it, and they don't lay out what will happen if they don't. This is another example of exactly that. And both the 14 and 18 agreements were rolled into every single union's collective bargaining agreement, whether you guys knew it or not. When you just ratified your contract, you might have seen an appendix or a side letter, and that was the 14 and the 18 MLC agreements. No union leader at the time, except for one union, stood up for their members and refused to enroll them into their CBAs. The only one that did not do that at the time was the PBA, because they knew that this was wrong. 14 and 18 marked the first time in history that a union negotiated their contracts on other people's backs. I believe, as does our council, that the rights of employees, and this is New York City collective bargaining law right here. I'm going to show you this. You could look this up. New York City collective bargaining law 12-305, rights of public employees and certified employee organizations, which are unions. That you have, public employees have the right to self-organize and form a union and collectively bargain through your certified employee organization. Not have Michael Mulgrew do it for you, or Henry Garrido do it for you, or the MLC do it for you, who isn't a bargaining unit that you're not in. And we believe, as in 12-306, it's an improper practice, good faith bargaining. It is an improper for public employer practices if it's improper for a public employer or its agents to interfere, restrain, or coerce public employees to exercise of their rights granted under 12-305 of this chapter to dominate or interfere with the formation or administration of any public employee organization. And that includes your collective bargaining. So what OLR has been doing is encouraging this tripartite committee, which is of the MLC, which is one labor person, which is Alan Klinger, who is a lawyer who represents every union on the executive board of the MLC plus a few others. How can he represent the interests of all the other union members when he represents the UFT, DC 37, 237, CWA sanitation? It's impossible. He does what the House wants, especially the two largest unions, and the United Federation of Teachers pays this guy millions of dollars. It's also an improper practice for employee organizations to do the same thing, interfere or coerce employees in the exercise of their rights granted under 12-305 of this chapter. What the UFT and DC 37 did was interfere or coerce unions to agree with the MLC agreements to enrich their unions, and it was encouraged by OLR. The MLC is not a negotiating body, even though it says it is. It has no power under the law. It can act as a coalition, but even so, a union does not have to participate in the coalition, and membership or dues paying does not commit to that, as those funds were to pay OCB salaries for those neutrals and the labor chairs. And in our opinion, Alan Klinger was wrong to have convinced the unions to do the MLC agreements, that it would largely benefit the UFT and then DC 37, and that interfered with unions' mandatory subjects of bargaining. Unions can only represent those in their union for wages, hours, and work conditions, which includes health and welfare fund benefits, and those belong to you, not a coalition, not a committee, and your members can hold you accountable. This MLC voting, I explained, was one vote for every 250 members of the union, or prorated if it's less. This needs to be changed. This was put in place in 1966 when the largest union in the MLC at the time was DC 37, and the 2/3 motion was required to pass any motion. Many unions needed to support it, but the UFT didn't join, like I said, the MLC until the late 80s or early 90s, and that changed the entire construct. So today, the UFT and DC 37 can basically pass that motion on their own. You won't know that because the MLC violates its own bylaws, and it never tells you when they vote, and they're supposed to do this quarterly, what the membership certified for each union is. When a vote is called, Harry Greenberg is supposed to say, United Federation of Teachers, 120,081 members, 480.3 votes, but they never tell you that. And the last time one of the unions asked that in a roll call vote, he was shot down and told that he didn't have to answer the question. That was wrong, a blatant violation of Robert's rules and of their own bylaws. Now, this was frustrating because we know that they've been doing this, and this still needs to be under daylight. So we're asking also for a change for democracy to protect and preserve collective bargaining in the city, that union relations and the sanctity of what was created in 1966, that we don't want this to continue. The MLC has been manipulated by lawyers, consultants, and the two largest unions in the city. Make this right, or you will have destroyed your own healthcare program and labor as you know it. And that is concerning to us. So again, the one person, one vote, we want them to change this voting structure, and that's not what they're using today. So in order to get, I'm not going to go into all of this. I will leave this attached, but the rules of Robert's rules embody fundamental principles of parliamentary law, such that rules that only allow one question to be considered at a time or cannot be suspended even by a unanimous vote. Thus, its fundamental principle of parliamentary law, the right to vote is limited to the members of an organization who actually are present at the time the vote is taken in a regular or properly called meetings. You will find that the MLC violates its own bylaws and its own rules, and depending upon what they want or don't want to do, because right now the Municipal Labor Committee is going to hold a vote on September 30th, and this is why this is concerning. Every union in the city of New York that has a bargaining certificate has the right to bargain for their members for wages, hours, and work conditions, including health care. Not the MLC. The MLC has no bargaining certificate. The United Federation of Teachers can't bargain for the laborers. The laborers can't bargain for the bridge and building painters. They have to only work for within their own unit and for their own union members. Now we have this proposed healthcare plan, which sounds great on its face, right? Many of our retirees that are non-Medicare that live around the United States are struggling right now with the GHI CBP plan because they don't have doctors or access to hospitals. And yet this new plan is promising that with the United Healthcare Network. However, we need to caution you again. They promised when they did the RFP in 2022 for this plan that they would save $1 billion, 10% of the cost of healthcare. And yet in what they were sharing, when we begged them to look at the contract, we told them, look at the contract. Finally, they give them a contract highly redacted, and they give them 1 day to view it at DC 37 headquarters in Lower Manhattan on Barclay Street between like 10 and 3. And they notified you on Friday, and I think it was like a Monday or a Tuesday in which this was going to happen. That's not enough time. And it's also preventing the entire board of a union from going to see it or bringing it to their advisors or their attorneys or their health policy experts. That should never be. And you have to always wonder, if someone is trying to tell you, it's like that used car sales pitch, look, this deal is only good for the next 10 minutes. If you walk away, I'm going to give this deal to somebody else. Well, if they're pressuring you like that, then they're trying to get you to do something because they think if you think about it too long, you won't do it. So they want you to think that you're going to lose if you don't do it now. And that's part of the problem. Here we are again, making the same mistakes we made in 14 and 18, and yet by the two largest unions who have the most to benefit from this. We all want a great healthcare plan, whether it's Medicare or non-Medicare. But what DC 37 and the United Federation of Teachers has done over the last decade was tell us that we have no reason to trust them. No transparency. There's no democracy. You're not giving us time to look at the documents. Now, remember, in 2021 and 2023, two courts, the United States Supreme Court gave us, the New York Supreme Court, gave us a temporary restraining order in the Campion case and then the Benkowski case in 23 by saying the same thing, that the city and the MLC did not provide enough information to our retirees to be able to make a decision for them and their families, and it was arbitrary and capricious, and stop the plan from being implemented. Twice. We reminded we reminded the city's Office of Labor Relations that this happened. And we even gave them a link to all the documents in which the judge granted the restraining order. And we said, you're doing this a third time. We are retirees. You didn't invite us to the table. You didn't invite us to this meeting. And yes, Long Beach, absolutely. Sorry, I'm not even totally forgetting all the comments. This is deja vu all over again. Unions don't have enough information, and I'm hoping this time that they're educated enough to say enough of this bullshit. Healthcare, this is huge. And what is the two largest unions in the city of New York doing under the Municipal Labor Committee with their legal attorneys, Alan Klinger? negotiating away healthcare repeatedly. Now, this contract doesn't tell you anywhere that it's guaranteed for 5 years. It doesn't tell you that there's guaranteed for 5 years premium free. It doesn't tell you that the copays won't go up. It doesn't tell you what the prior authorizations are. All you're hearing from, these two wizards and everybody else is basically saying, oh, it's a wonderful healthcare plan and it's premium free, quality healthcare. Okay, so it's premium free. It's premium free for how long? It's premium free, copay free, deductible free, prior authorization free? Oh, no. We've reduced the prior authorizations by 50%. 50% of what? What were the prior authorizations in the CBP plan? Because what we know is that every time they went to find more savings or healthcare was going higher, they went back to the MLC and were negotiating more prior authorization to control the cost. So you were seeing more denials and delays of care. We need a good healthcare plan, but we also need transparency. And these same knuckleheads argued before the city council to staff and fund and create the Healthcare Office of Accountability with Julie Menon in the city council to create an organization an office that would have healthcare accountability and expose the healthcare costs and suppress or control the costs for the hospitals. Well, if you're looking to do that, and the hospitals, why are you not willing to have that transparency and protection right here at home in our own backyards? We need to make sure that this plan, so you guys also know, this current plan that they're trying to pass affects the mayor, the commissioners, the deputy commissioners, the deputy mayors, and the city council, and all policymakers. This is their healthcare too. What are they doing about it? Why aren't they asking the questions? You have now yet the two largest unions with their overpriced consultants, Siegel and Milliman and Alan Klinger, and trying to convince them that this is what they need. And they have to get it done. And of course, he's part of the tripartite committee. So yes, absolutely, deja vu all over again. Groundhog Day, here we go. I know, I'm telling you, this is the ridiculousness of this. The ultimate insurance. You know what? I've been doing this for over 30 years. It's truly frustrating to me to keep watching this, uncovering the scheming of backdoor dealers, truth to power. Listen, yes, this MLC is supposed to hold a meeting at 10 a.m. at DC 37 headquarters on Tuesday. And if you'd like, hey, I can't make it there, but hey, go take your signs and go and protest right in front of 125 Barclay Street. I cannot be in Manhattan on that day, but if you want to go and make sure that your union leaders are listening to you, the message should be how many prior authorizations, what is in the network, what is the deal? Where's the scheming? We want to know how many prior authorizations there are. What are they on? Who can change them and how often they can do that? Are there no copays for the 5-year term? If they don't meet the $1 billion savings, what's going to happen after the first 12 months? Remember, they locked in a 5-year contract with this agreement. If they lock in a 5-year contract, what are the terms in that 5 years? If they're not meeting their savings after the first year, can they then start to impose $50 copays on all of the members, or $100 copays, or $10 copays, or $25? Look, they told retirees on Medicare you would have $15 copays. They didn't tell you it was $15 on everything. I walked out of the doctor's office last month. I got hit with $60 in copays. They literally dinged me on $15 for every single thing. That was not what you were told. And I bet you every one of the MLC unions, if we called them today, didn't know that that was what was going to happen. What will happen under this plan? It's not spelled out. And it wasn't, the copays weren't spelled out before. We can't even find any official documents, and we've been denied every FOIL since we filed them. That's not transparency. If they don't meet the $1 billion, what are you gonna pay? When does it start? How often does it go up? And who makes those decisions and how often? When do the prior authorizations change? Remember, in the Aetna Medicare Advantage plan, they could change the prior authorizations every 2 years, and they is the city and this little municipal labor committee. You had no say. And when we bitched and complained and sued, they then said, oh my God, you're right. We shouldn't have had that many prior authorizations. We'll suspend a chunk of them for the first 2 years, and the city will pay $15 per person per month to suspend that chunk of prior authorizations. But after 2 years, we're going to reevaluate that. Now, that's a cost to the city, that $15 per person per month. So what's going to happen? If Michael Mulgrew or UFT, DC 37, Henry Garrido goes and says, hey, listen, I need to come up with more money for my contract. We got to get rid of that $15 a person a month that the city's paying to suspend those prior authorizations. Guess what? They negotiate that away. Then you are paying more for prior authorizations. Either you're paying it in form of premium or deductibles or higher copays, or you're getting sacked with more prior authorizations, or all of the above. This is why we keep saying the United Federation of Teachers is misleading people to say that this plan was wonderful. They never looked at the details. And yet their healthcare committee voted to go ahead and support the plan and pass it to the delegate assembly, which votes on the 29th, one day before the MLC meeting. They don't know the details, and we keep saying they don't know what they don't know. You have people like Mr. Grubiak and Emily James on their social medias attacking us for saying where is all the details on these issues. They're just given the talking points to promote this. That's not what they should be looking at. What's on the face is what's wonderful. It's what you're not telling us. Just like the last time, they gave us these like 2 sheets that had multicolored lines, and some were blue and some were darker blue and some were white. And they only told you all the positives and what they wanted you to know. They didn't tell you that they were forcing you into a managed care plan with major prior authorizations, with a narrow network that had managed care implementations in it. If your healthcare bills hit a certain point, you triggered a managed care person under the guise it was saying, oh, we're going to take care of you and we're going to help you manage your care and we're going to call you. No, they're looking to control your costs because your healthcare costs are costing them. That's what they call medical loss ratio. They're given a certain amount of money typically in these Medicare Advantage plans that they want to try to keep as profit. But if you're spending it, it's more out of their pocket, and it's less profit for them. So this plan, while this does not affect a Medicare eligible person, it has some of the same designs that we're getting concerned, because this is exactly what they did to us before. The MLC is acting as a bogus illegal committee. The unions who sign or go along with this charade are also guilty of not filling out their fiduciary responsibility of their dues paying members. And you're absolutely right, because they're not calling them out on it. There are a few unions that are, but I don't know. We have to see. You have all the material for a lawsuit. Go for it. So, and no, Chris Marte can't help with this. This is the city. Harry Greenberg, Harry Greenberg is part of this. He's part of the MLC. He's one of their in-house lawyers. How do we get them to do it appropriately? So, Debbie, what you have to do is you have to call your former union if you're a retiree, or call your union if you're active, and tell them that they have to hold that they have to get these details. We literally, and I'll put it when this hits. Let me see if I can pull that up. We sent a letter to all of the unions, and we told them, like, this is happening again. You need to pay attention to this and do the right thing, because you have a responsibility to your members. And if you don't, this is going to be a problem. You have to make sure that you represent them properly. By doing what you're doing isn't representing them properly. By letting the MLC handle this when you may disagree with it, why are you allowing them to force you into a plan that maybe you don't feel you're ready for, or you don't have enough information? If you don't have enough information, basically what you should be saying is, I'm sorry, I don't have enough information to vote on this. I abstain. And there's a couple of unions that typically do that, one specifically being the PBA, and they are constantly being mocked for doing that. But they learned a long time ago that the union does not, the union has to represent their members, right? And they also learned a very long time ago that Office of Collective Bargaining and Office of Labor Relations are encouraging this vote for the MLC because they don't want to have to negotiate with like 160 unions. So in doing that, what are they doing? They're encouraging the MLC to manipulate this vote and vote the way it wants to vote. And sadly, they get away with it just about every single freaking time. It's so sad. I can't even, and no matter, we've been trying to explain this to them for 4 years. And yet in all of that time, no matter what we do, we just seem to struggle getting the message across. It is every union's responsibility to negotiate for their union members, not like this. This is